at the gateway until verdict. During the course of presentation, all participants' line will be in listen-only mode. During the course of presentation, should you wish to ask any question, you may use the chat facility to send your questions to all panelists. It's my pleasure to introduce your speaker for today. We have with us Mr. Brooke Chelmo. He's on the SonicWall product team that is responsible for the development of security services that keep our organization safe. He has a passion of security and teaching others how to stay secure online. And now, without any further delay, I would like to hand over the proceedings to Mr. Chelmo. Thank you, and over to you, Mr. Chelmo.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you for that warm introduction, and I'm glad to be here today. So today we're going to talk about stopping advanced threats at the gateway until we have a verdict, which is a unique discipline involving a technology within network security called the network sandbox. So we'll get into that in just a moment, but let's talk a little bit about our threat research. So in the last year, every year SonicWall comes out with a threat research piece called the Annual Threat Report. I encourage you to download that. It's called the 2018 Annual Threat Report from SonicWall. And in there's a lot of unique findings from the data that we get. Since we have over 1 million sensors located around the world, and we have a threat research team which is actively looking for new threats, as well as taking the new threats and other things processed by, say, Microsoft's team and other teams that we coordinate with, I think over 54 different research agencies around the world, to gather new samples of malware so we can create signatures to stop them. So let me ask you this question. How many new forms of malware did we find last year? What would you guess? New forms of malware. Anytime I ask that question at a show or at an event like this, I'll get interesting questions, and typically I'll hear 1,000, 2,000, 10,000. Would you believe that last year SonicWall discovered over 58 million new forms of malware? 58 million. Well, of course, we're talking about updates and polymorphic versions of malware that split up into different types of payloads based on the operating system that it finds. But nonetheless, 58 million forms of malware. Millions of strains of ransomware. It's very common. Last year, SonicWall blocked 9.32 billion malware attacks across the entire network of SonicWall customers. We don't have 9.3 billion customers. Nobody does. There's not that many people in the world. That means each customer behind a SonicWall firewall is getting attacked multiple times, and we're stopping these in different ways. I'll share that with you in the next few slides here. But 9.3 billion malware attacks, and not only are we talking about this, but we're seeing trillions, with a T, trillions of IPS attacks, like Apache Struts 2 and other things that affected, say, Equifax and other companies last year. So that's a lot of attacks. There's a lot of new malware being used in a lot of different ways. And we're doing this through the SonicWall Capture Labs threat network. And this is a mixture of the people and technology that, one, find all the new threats, create signatures, and also update other technologies which are able to diagnose suspicious code based on its behavior. We have over 1 million sensors located around the world in over 200 countries and territories. We're monitoring this 24/7, 365, and our ability to respond to a zero-day vulnerability is typically less than 24 hours. For any critical vulnerabilities, say WannaCry, NotPetya, Bad Rabbit, all the other SAM ransomware, any of these kind of hot ticket items, high functioning items, we're out there right away trying to create definitions for that and push those off the firewalls. But naturally, that does take time. So we need to have technology in place that's able to take suspicious code and find it before we do. Okay, that's the critical part here, to find it before we do. Now, when it comes to a lot of technology, it's about the things that we know about and the things that we don't know about. If we know about, let's say, SAM ransomware, we're able to create a signature for that, put that into firewalls, and put those into other places like email security, so a file with SamSim ransomware can't get into your inbox. Or that you try to download SamSim ransomware and it can't because we signature that item and we're going to stop it before it gets to the endpoint. So if we know about it, we can stop it. But the big question here is, what about the stuff that we don't know about? And that's what I'm going to share this with you here. I'm going to share this kind of data stream that you'll see here. But we're going to talk about technology on the left. It's how we stop things that we know about, and the technology on the right, how we stop things that we don't know about or we can't see because it's encrypted, things like that, okay? Now, on the left-hand side of your screen, if you're used to my presentation, you've seen me kind of give a diagram here. The diagram on the left is broken down on the right in a more simple version, trying to make it more simple. So in this illustration here, imagine this is someone on the internet going throughout the day, downloading files online, they're answering email, they're doing lots of different things here. Now, in order for this to really make sense, you have to keep in mind that they do have a firewall. And, they have a firewall, and they're using SSL encryption. Oh, and by the way, I do want to ask you a question here. We have a polling question here on the right, and that is I'm asking if you guys are using a network sandbox, which we'll get into more details later. So either yes, no, I don't know, or you're evaluating that right now. So please click that poll at this point. So back to the illustration here. Imagine that you are here downloading files, doing the things that you do. You have email coming in, emails from inside the organization, outside the organization, and stuff is coming at you all the time. Now, there's a lot of things that we do to try to stop bad things from happening before they come to the firewall. And that's where we're using things like content filtering and botnet filtering. I said the content filtering represented here for simplicity here, but content filtering is what a lot of people have but do not use. Again, it's a technology that a lot of people have access to, but they're not using it. So, and because typically it's billed as a special for schools or a technology for schools to keep children from searching for things that they shouldn't, like extremist material or even adult material. But content filtering can also be used to turn on so that you can block traffic from specific sites or specific countries. You could use it to not only block nudism or extremism, but you could use it to block sites from Russia or China or other parts of the world. You can also use it to block sites that the location is not known, like a lot of hacking sites. So content filtering is going to be a mixture of, I use red, green, and yellow. Red meaning we know it's bad, we can stop it with content filtering. We know it's good, we let it on through, like Google or your local bank. Or if we don't know about it, we can still let it through and then allow network security to take over at that point. So again, botnet filtering is very similar. We try to stop access to CNC servers, where people try to exfiltrate data to that DLP server. We can block that from happening. It can also be used where your malware is trying to download a payload from a command and control server. We can use botnet filtering to block the download of that payload, which is common in ransomware and other forms of Trojans. So after we've done that, files are coming into the network. They've gone into the firewall now. Now the firewall is going to apply what it knows, good and bad. Now, of course, it's going to know about lots of bad. It's going to know whatever's good because you've downloaded that before, in the past. But again, there's a lot of files that the firewall doesn't know. Let's say between 4 or 5% of the files that you download on a given day, your firewall has no verdict for, has no signature for, or hasn't added to a whitelist. By the way, this is how we block a lot of the 9.3 billion malware attacks we talked about last year. A good percentage of them are also on the network sandbox, but they're also here as well. So that's where the network sandbox comes into play. And again, if you can answer the polling question over here on the right, are you using a network sandbox? Again, I'm seeing some results here which help me The 29 people have not responded to this one yet, but if you could just quickly give me an understanding of your understanding of this technology so that I can speak to it more specifically to your needs. But a network sandbox, what is it? It's an isolated environment where we take suspicious code and we blow it up or examine it, whatever word you want to use here, in its own isolated environment. So as a result, we have a pretty clear definition of what's good and what's bad. Again, previously, there are quite a few suspicious files that you can say they're gray listed. Now, we hopefully have a determination that these are indefinitely good or indefinitely bad. But we also use client antivirus for one, when people are inside or outside the network. Or also when we have, so it's great for inside the network because security doesn't stop everything. And also if you do not decrypt information, the encrypted traffic will go through gateway security. It can't examine it. It'll go through capture ATP. It can't examine it because it's encrypted. So that's where antivirus comes into play here. Antivirus is also very important when you're outside the network. And we have a new thing called Capture Client, which is full behavior-based, which is examining the behavior of the system, and then also called heuristics-based antivirus. So ultimately, to make things more simple, is we want to have clean traffic coming to the network. By the way, we also have another polling question here is, what are you using for antivirus? Are you using the next generation antivirus or more of a traditional antivirus, or are you using, or are you unaware of what's going on here? Again, a traditional antivirus is like a Norton or a McAfee or Kaspersky. It's based on signatures. Now, we also have what is called heuristic-based or next-generation-based, and that's based on the behavior of the system, like SentinelOne or other things like Cylance. Again, the objective here is to deliver to the network only pure communication that is clean and clear and has been verified to be good through this type of technology. So with that being said, we're going to go back a step here and talk about the network sandbox. Again, this is about stopping advanced threats at the gateway. Okay, that's important, at the gateway. So how do we do this? We use a thing called a network sandbox here at SonicWall called Capture Advanced Threat Protection, also known as Capture ATP. Some people just call it Capture, but there's a lot of things being named Capture these days at SonicWall, so Capture ATP is what we're going to call this. Okay. So again, there's another little diagram that makes it even more simple. You look at the things that are in kind of that green, that sea green. That's the technology, how we stop the things that we know about, like content filtering, intrusion prevention, gateway security, those things like that. Now the sandbox is how we, that edge on the network that's going to examine all those files to try to come up with a verdict for what is going on with that suspicious file. So what is unique to Capture ATP is that it is a multi-engine environment. It's able to do lots of things, and we'll explain that a little bit more, but this multi-engine environment allows you to block files at the gateway until you have a verdict. I'm going to pause there for a second. What does that mean? What this means here is that if you're trying to download a file, it's going to stop that file and hold on to it until you have a verdict, yes. And if it's no, you're going to be blocked from accessing it. You'll get a warning. If it's an email, the email security appliance is going to then hold that at the gateway, and if it's malicious, it won't even go to your inbox. It's just dumped, and the administrator is warned about it. Okay? So this is kind of how this works. It's really fun. And this is a service that's on the Generation 6 firewalls that you see below there. If you have one of those firewalls, you can run this service. Again, if you can respond to the polling question, that'll help me understand what we're dealing with here in terms of the antivirus too, as we're just trying to understand our audience a little bit more. So, and again, what is fun here is that we have the rapid deployment of threat intelligence. In the case of, let's say, in India, let's pretend you have 3 different people, someone in Calcutta, another person in Chennai, another person in Bangalore. And what will end up happening is someone will start the day, let's say 8 in the morning, and they open a file. That file goes up to Capture ATP. It renders a verdict that it's malware. Now, the person who is in, let's say, Chennai or Bangalore, they go and upload the same file and send it up to the cloud, and what ends up happening is that there's now a verdict there that comes back to them within milliseconds. That's a bad file, and you cannot download that. You cannot open that file. So that is how this works. It's a really fun technology. This won the CRN NetSec Product of the Year in 2016. So ultimately, what does this mean? This means to you who is running an organization, and it means to us, is that we've added a wonderful new kind of form of technology here to help keep people safe, especially in a world where we process 58 million new versions of malware. That includes info stealers, credential theft type stuff, ransomware, you name it. A lot of fileless malware these days. There's a lot of different things out there. So you're going to see this slide a lot from SonicWall's technology kind of people like myself to talk about how we do this. Again, it's based on using our deep learning algorithm, which is going to process through a lot of things and is able to help us extract the DNA out of the code so that we are able to stop that before it often gets to your system. Now, again, if we know about this, we're able to stop it. But if we don't know about it, it's going to go through down there on the bottom right. That is the network sandbox engine, like we mentioned before. And here we have, you can see, look at the A, B, C, and D. These are the 4 different types of engines that we're using here in SonicWall. We have more than 4 engines, you could say, involved in the sandbox, but 4 different styles of examining traffic in parallel. They're not run in sequence. They're done in parallel, so we get a quick verdict fast. And that is where we're doing hypervisor level analysis, full system emulation, again, virtualization, and memory-based analysis, a thing called RTDMI, which is currently in North America, and we're rolling this out in APAC very soon. So again, this is based on the SonicWall Capture Cloud platform that you're going to hear a lot about, which includes, a lot of things from the firewall to email security and to other technologies as well. Forward the slide here. 1 second, please. Okay. So involving all the different things that we're doing here, a lot of this is based on the cloud. You'll be hearing, if you've been around SonicWall for a number of years, you understand how we work. There's a lot of new things that you've never seen before coming out of SonicWall, and this is, ever since we left Dell about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, that we've done a lot of work to really get up to the place where we need to go, and that's cloud-based delivery to examine threats in the cloud. And this is where the Capture Cloud platform really comes into play here with threat prevention, management, and reporting and analytics that'll help help you understand the threat landscape as well as your security posture. So a lot of people may say, okay, you have a lot of technology here that's running in parallel. How does it work? Please, help me understand this more. For a good example, I like to, I have a lot of friends from Chennai, and we like to play badminton together. So what will happen is, let's say at the end of the day, I wake up and my wrist is sore. And I look at it, it looks fine, but it feels terrible. So I go to my doctor and I say, could you look at this? What's wrong with me? And so she does a visual examination of my wrist. She'll bend it, move it, and try to see what it looks like, what's happening there. She's going to order up an X-ray. She's going to order up an MRI, and she can also order up a blood test to see what's happening with my wrist, with my body. Now, in this example, this would take a long time. It can be very expensive, and these things are done in sequence with a lot of waiting involved. But this helps you understand how this is done. How we're doing this at SonicWall is that it's cheap and fast, very fast. Let me ask you this question. What % of all files that we process are processed in under 5 seconds? The answer? 70%. Over 70% of all files are processed in under 5 seconds. It's fast. Again, we're doing hypervisor level analysis, full system simulation, memory-based analysis, and virtualization, so we can understand what any suspicious file, any batch of code wants to do from the application, down to the operating system, down to the software that resides on the hardware. It's amazing what we're doing here with Sonic Walls. It's really fun, and we're finding lots of interesting things. So let me propose to you a question. Take a look at the two watches there on the left side of your screen. Which one's real? Which one's fake? We say, we often call in the United States a fake Rolex a Rolex. Which one's a Rolex and which one's a Rolex? They look identical, don't they? But what if you had a technology, because I mean, you and I, we could maybe pick it up. I know to look for rolling chronometers, and I know to check for the weight of a watch. But generally, I find it not in the hands of a dealer that it's going to be a fake watch. But what if you were at a dealer? How would you know this? What if the dealer was rumored to be selling fake watches? How would you know? Imagine if you had a technology that could essentially explode that device or examine it or take it apart, and then within nanoseconds, microseconds, you could take a look and catalog every single piece of that watch and examine it against every real Rolex that you've ever seen or examined in the past, and every fake Rolex that's been out there. And based on what we can see here, and based on all the fake Rolexes and all the parts we've cataloged and watched and seen, that we know that, yes, this may have a Rolex case and a Rolex crystal and a Rolex face piece, but the insides of this fake and malicious. This is how this technology works. We're able to take code, play with it in memory, and see what it does. Very exciting. And let me give you and also what's fun about the technology here is that it's really good. It's amazing at analyzing. I'm just giving you a real good example here of PDFs and Office documents. There's a lot of things that it can do. But the PDFs and Office documents are a really good example. If you take a look here at the exploit kits defined here in our 2018 threat report, Office documents and Adobe applications are the top 5 out of the top 10 applications affected in 2017. Apple TV made an appearance on that list. That not seen before until that point. So you can see here from this list of 9 that the top 5 in that list, the top 5 are PDFs and Office documents and other types of attachments. So our technology is designed to really go after that. It's going to do lots of things, but the PDFs and Office documents are just another part of it. So as a result, we're able to strip down, I'll just go back here for a second, but we're able to strip down that traffic, see what's in there. And sometimes you're able to see, documents inside of documents and examine that, see what it wants to do. And that's how we're able to find these things very fast. Typically with the network sandbox thing, analyzing PDFs and Office documents takes a long time. So the technology we're deploying today is really fast and very successful. We've also used this technology to find a rat, a remote access Trojan. Have you heard of this before? These are the types of malware people will, for a personal user, they'll try to access your microphone, your keyboards, and all your keystrokes, and they're also going to be taking control of your webcam. Now, hackers love these. People who want to hack individuals enjoy them because they will try to manipulate these people, and they'll make them do things so the hacker will delete the malware off their system. Or they'll blackmail them. I caught you changing your clothes because I know your school and I know your Facebook account. I'll share your pictures of you changing your clothes to everyone in your school. So they do things in order to kind of appease these hackers. If this happens to you, you do not give in. Let your children know that if this happens, to let them know. And nothing that they've done in the privacy of their owner will ever get them in trouble, and that you'll protect them from any repercussions. So these things people have committed suicide because of the pressure that hackers have put on them. Now, these remote access Trojans are also used in corporate spaces, in corporate places. Why? They don't care about your webcam or what you're doing on your computer at work. What they want is they want to capture your login credentials. They want to capture your passwords. They want to capture lots of different things, the places you go, the instances of Salesforce use, and they want all those credentials so they can use to try to propagate malware through the entire organization by infecting your PC further and then leaking that through shared network drives. So we used this technology the other day to discover something that no one has ever discovered before, and a new remote access Trojan, which has not been cataloged. This was not in Virus Total. This was not in Reversing Labs. This was another unique zero-day malware that SonicWall was the first to find. We find close to 500 a day. This is just another good example. Now take a look at this. This was an office document mailed to somebody. Because it was found to be malicious, the person never saw it. The administrator gets to see this. We get to see this. We got this file, and inside of it is another file that says, please click this to see your invoice. If you see anything like this, you know it's got to be fake. They click on it. If they were to click on it, they'd be hacked with their remote access Trojan. In the case of SonicWall, we're able to break that down. Now take a look at the reporting there on the right. What do you notice? There's one engine in red. The others are gray. It timed out because the technology sometimes cannot catch malware. It's just the way it works. As much as we'd like to think that the security we build is perfect, it catches everything. It's the most wonderful thing. And everyone who competes against us is terrible. Anybody who tells you that is a liar. There's no such thing as perfect security. But that is why we add multiple layers. That's why we do multiple things like gateway security, endpoint security. We use content filtering. We try to eliminate threats as much as we can. If I can go back to a previous screen. Oops. A couple more. Just like this. We applied lots of layers to eliminate this to make it as fast and as good as possible. But again, we have to use, again, a mixture of techniques of things that we do, things that we know and things that we don't know. So how do we discover this stuff? And that is through this type of technology. So what about ransomware? We go back to here, this one here. So again, this technology, one engine out of 3 was able to catch it. We're happy with that. Now, of course, we want the other 2 engines to do better, and that's what machine learning is going to do, is help it learn better from learning from the other engine. But nonetheless, this is why we use a multi-engine sandbox. There's competitors out there saying, oh, we can do the same thing as SonicWall with one engine. No, they can't. Nobody can. Multiple engines is where it's at. This is why this is the NetSec product of the year last year. So, again, back to the threat research report. Tell me about ransomware. What do you learn from that? If you take a look at this, here's some good news. The number of ransomware attacks last year, the actual volume, the number, fell by 71.2%. Yay, that's good news. But the number of variants increased by over 100%. I'm writing a blog now, and it's not up now, but you'll see it probably in about a week. That asks the question, if you were a leader of an army or a platoon of soldiers, and you discovered that the enemy reduced the number of machine guns by 73%, but increased snipers, they doubled the number of snipers, would you celebrate that? I don't know if you would. It's a change in tactics. And that's what hackers have done. They've gone from the spray and pray approach of ransomware, just slamming the ransomware, slathering it like butter all over bread, hoping to catch as many people as they can for little payouts that are just annoying as little stings in the side, to getting very targeted, very focused, and malware that includes lots of technology, like WannaCry or NotPetya, which is not only a ransomware variant, but there's also a worm designed to exploit the SMB vulnerability to snake through an organization through shared drives. That's why SandSam ransomware is so powerful. In the city of Atlanta here in the United States, shut down 5 out of 13 departments for 10 days. Ouch. And here's the fun news. The hackers asked for $51,000. The city of Atlanta said no and spent 10 days recovering, costing them probably millions of dollars. But they did not pay the hackers. But nonetheless, this is the world that we live in. Hyper-targeted, very strong ransomware. Instead of the cheap spray and pray from 2016, 2018, it's all about targeted attacks and putting in a lot of different places. But slow and strong and focused attacks with technology that's really evasive. And this is why we use the network Sandbox to stop this. We want to stop these advanced attacks at the gateway so you spend less time cleaning up things, losing files and productivity to ransomware. I wish the city of Atlanta used this technology. I don't know what they did, but nonetheless, they have a mess to clean up here. So let me share with you this. This is one of my favorite strains of ransomware because it is so tough. It's so tough to find. A lot of competitors out there, a lot of people out there just can't stop it. It's nasty stuff. Cerber is tough. And in fact, if you look at this report here, this strain of ransomware bypassed 1 of 3 engines within Capture ATP. Now, if you're the administrator and this is your company, you can dig in here. You can click those XML files on the right and go in there and dig. Sometimes you get screenshots. They're not that important, so if you see them, 99% of the time you see a lot of just code being run. So, but luckily with ransomware strains, you can see the ransom screen. So in this case, take a look at the left. That is from the XML file from this real report. By the way, this is real ransomware on a real customer system that was blocked by Capture ATP. They don't know it. Maybe the administrator knows it, but nonetheless, it's a happy customer, especially if they know this. So take a look at that XML file on the left. Look over there. What do you see? If you bend it a little closer, you'll see 7 different evasion tactics. Look at that. Ability to check the disk size. They want to know, is this a real computer or is this a virtual environment? It's a virtual environment, but they don't know that. Okay, it's very realistic. They'll look at keyboard layouts. Again, is it a virtual machine or is it a computer? Ability to retrieve current memory availability. Delaying execution, trying to disable Windows errors, switching processor mode, doing a lot of different things to try to see if they're in a real place and try to blow itself up. We were able to do that with technology in place that tries to detect when it's trying to sniff out a virtual environment. That's evasive malware. That's an advanced threat being stopped at the gateway. Now take a look at that on the right. That's a screenshot. That, my friends, is Cerber. And I'll tell you, at the end of 2016, I would go into these reports across the world and try to catalog what's going on, try to get a feel for things. And at the end of 2016, I'd see ransomware 6 out of 10 times. And I would see Cerber twice a day. Now someone says, wait a second, I've been paying attention. You said that if you identified a new form of malware, ransom, or whatever, you would log it, and anybody who found it again would get a verdict. So why are you seeing it twice? Why is it being processed twice? Because, my friends, they are different variants. Boom, boom, boom. Yes. Yes. I would see 2 versions of Cerber every single day at the end of 2016, early 2017. They're creating many versions. It's out there. You know what? In fact, the authors of Cerber don't push their own ransomware anymore. They do not do phishing attempts. The authors of Cerber do not put this on fake or spoof websites. The authors of Cerber sell an exploit kit, and you pay them to use it, and they get a cut of the profits. That's what they're doing. I'll tell you what, look at that bottom right-hand screen. That's what your endpoint would look like had you not had this level of protection. So again, when I say to people, Are you running a network sandbox? I better hope so. And guess what? If you're not, we can easily get you set up on that. It's not a problem. And in this day and age, it's an essential service that we're adding to the SonicWall firewalls for an additional charge. We have a package available that is called Advanced Gateway Security Suite, also known as AGSS. That includes all the technology that I spoke about before, from content filtering, gateway security, and the Sandbox. Not endpoint security, that's a different thing. That's coming out this month. But nonetheless, it's called AGSS. It's going to give you all those network security services to scrub off that stuff. And if you have an old firewall, we have upgrades for you that really try to eliminate the cost for you. So with that being said, we're going to roll this over to QA. But before we get a chance, I want to plug the 2018 Cyber Threat Report by SonicWall. It's a really good source for you to take a look at. It's considerably long, but it's a really easy read, and I think it's really well done by a great team here at SonicWall. So nonetheless, this is based off our research over the last year, and we make it freely available for you. So please try to download the PDF. You can search for that in your favorite browser or your favorite search engine. With that being said, what questions do we have?
Ladies and gentlemen, should you wish to ask any question, you may use the chat facility to send your questions to all panelists. We already have a few questions which popped up on the chat section.
Okay.
And we have the first question. How can we save against the targeted attack if we are using the ATP license?
Well, in the case of a targeted attack, that's where your firewall is going to come into play and activate anything in try to look at everything coming in through the firewall. Okay, with security, of course, we're trying to find everything out there that we can, all the different versions of ransomware, creating signatures for that. Hopefully, a lot of that gets scrubbed out. Now, if it's brand new, it's a version of malware that's meant for you, an update that you're the first to see, which is very common. That's where Capture ATP is going to stop that file as it's coming into the network, run it, and blow it up. Now, because like back in the watch example, we see the components of ransomware. We see the components of a lot of malware. And we're looking for those instructions and those commands. Now, if those instructions are identical to other malware, we know we have malware. So with that being said, that's how we're stopping these targeted attacks of the gateway.
Thank you very much. Well, the next question, isn't discovering a rat is kind of act reverse engineering?
Yeah, well, typically what in reverse engineering sounds is probably a little bit more, is a little bit different when you go into the code and break it all down. And that's, you're doing this manually. So what's happening is that when, in the case of the reverse the remote access Trojan of the rat, the computer is able to take a look at all the different things that it wants to do and ascertain that it's a rat based on its behavior, because it's doing this and that and trying to get a lot of different things. It's pretty sure it's a rat. Then what we do is then we go in, we run it ourselves. In the case of this one, we run it ourselves. We put it in another environment and then run it again and see what we get. And that's where you can see what it does. Now, reverse engineering typically means that we go into the code and we break this down and do a lot of analysis. We don't usually go through that unless we're dealing with something brand new or really tough, like we saw with, let's say, WannaCry, NotPetya, SAM ransomware, and things like that. And by the way, if you think of some other questions later, you're welcome to email sales@sonicwall.com. You can also follow me on Twitter. A lot of the news that comes out of SonicWall gets shared by myself. I do a lot of sharing from the threat research team, which not a lot of folks do. And I also do a lot of blogging and thought leadership on blockchain and security topics as well. So feel free to reach out that way. It's a good way to get a hold of me. What other questions do we have?
Yes, we have a few more questions. Will Capture ATP only showing source and destination IP? Should you have any more details on that?
So in terms of like IOCs, I'm going to assume that yes. So if you take a look here, source and destination are two things down here. I'm going to share, go back here, a couple lines, see if this is, no, go back. There we go. So in this analysis here, you're going to see a lot of below this. You're just seeing what is cut off. Below this is probably, if you press page down 3-4 times, you'll get to the end of this report. There you'll have the hashes, ND5, SHA-2, all the different hashes that are available for that, so you can block kind of follow-on attacks and been able to see it yourself.
Thank you very much. We have the next question. How to secure our network more?
Well, a simple question is, you want to talk to someone at SonicWall or the partner that you work with. Probably that's much more appropriate. And kind of go through there. And the one thing that a lot of people do not, here, let me say this. A lot of the average customers that we see at SonicWall sometimes be very small, 5 employees, 10 employees, 20 employees, versus, some that are, say, 2,000 like SonicWall, or, 200,000 like Dell. Here at a lot of the companies that we deal with here are not that big. And so they don't focus on this sometimes. They run older technology. If your cell phone in your pocket is newer than your firewall, you may need to have a conversation about its efficacy and its ability to protect your organization. Sometimes the firewalls that you bought 4 years ago will just not cut it. Sometimes if they're older firewalls, in order to do that DPI SSL, that's the inspection of encrypted traffic, you need to do that. That actually costs money. It's a service to pay for on the old devices. It's free on the new devices. So that's a good thing to take a look at. The endpoints, what endpoints are going outside or inside the network. I'm actually doing, my endpoint is at my home here in California, away from the office. I am not connected to VPN because I'm running WebEx right now. So I need to have a level of protection. That's where Capture Client comes into play. So those are some things to start off with. Your partners can be pretty good at trying to explain those things to you. So I would start there with your partner. Next question.
Thank you very much. We have the next question. Sometime when we update the firmware, our policy got renamed.
Oh. Yeah, that shouldn't happen. Again, that's probably going to be a tech support issue, and we want to ensure that when you upgrade your firewall, that you're able to port over your policies. So, first of all, I apologize that happened. I would love for you to give us your feedback. Again, talk to your partner, but specifically, we'd love for you to talk to us directly at SonicWall, so we can catalog that and try to help you in the future.
Thank you. We have the next question. We have ATP activated in TZ600. Whenever we choose to download a file, the ATP scan starts and we see the progress bar. When the scan is done, the page needs to be refreshed. Then the scan starts again. The file is eventually downloaded after repeating this 2-3 times. Does this mean ATP is not configured properly?
No. So that's a limitation which we're fixing in future releases. So, the progress bar isn't an exact representation of where things are at. That's more or less an education tool for people to know that something is being done right now, so you don't freak out and call IT. So typically, you're not going to see this a lot, but it does happen. I saw that I see about once a month, typically, sometimes even less than that. So in the future, that will, once it's actually done downloading, it will automatically repopulate, refresh that page, so you don't have to do that. So it's a little bit of user education to say that, if that happens, specifically PDFs. We're doing a lot of work to really improve the performance on PDFs, so please hold on there. It's on our roadmap to really improve that. And I apologize for the inconvenience And I know that we've come a long way in the last year and a half with that, but you're going to see some improvements for it that's going to hopefully resolve that complaint.
Thank you very much. We have a question. I want to understand the security against email spoofing.
So email spoofing, I am not an expert in email security. That is definitely a big topic for another day. Email security is a strong focus here at SonicWall. It's an amazing differentiator for SonicWall compared to a lot of other people out there because email security, of course, is a huge battleground for today. But there is, I think it's DMARC is the technology that's being used to try to eliminate spoofing and business email compromise. Ganesh Umabhati, who is a good partner of mine here at SonicWall, is probably a better person to speak about that, and we will have to probably set up a time to kind of go through, the power of email security, specifically we have hosted and on-prem.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. And just, if I was going to add one more thing to that, is that there's two ways that we're stopping a lot of threats come through email, and that is the two most vicious are those with malicious attachments, and the second are those with malicious URLs or hyperlinks in the body. There's IFC spam that just happens, it gets through, where it's someone trying to solicit something, nothing to click on, nothing to examine. But within email security, we're doing a lot to eliminate malicious attachments through CaptureATP's integration, very important, and also through content filtering that's able to say, hey, this domain that they've attached a URL for is bad. And there's more improvements coming with email security and CaptureATP to actually go and examine those attachments and those sort of attachments to the URL themselves. So, sorry, continue.
Thank you. We have the next question, which reads, what is the difference between DPI SSL and CaptureATP?
Okay. So DPI SSL means Deep Packet Inspection SSL. Let me come back to one of my earlier slides. Sorry. So take a look at this very simple graph here on the screen. So that's, if you look at the bottom, it's called SSL decryption, deep packet inspection of SSL, or also known as TLS traffic. SSL is still a little bit out there, but 99% of everything is TLS now. But the world is still going to call it SSL. We just can't kill the term. But deep packet inspection of SSL or encrypted traffic is what is called a middleman attempt. This is where usually the encrypted traffic is going to go directly from the web server to your endpoint without being inspected or touched by the firewall. What ends up happening is that we stop that traffic, it hits the firewall, we open that up, put it into plain text, examine it for threats, then pass it along to the end user really quickly. So that's what DPI SSL is. Now, CaptureATP is the network sandbox, which you see there on the top, the second bar from the left. That is the sandbox, which is the isolated environment to test it. Now, in order to get the maximum opportunity or the maximum benefit out of CaptureATP, you have to have the ability to inspect encrypted traffic. Or otherwise, roughly 40-some% of your traffic and 50-60% of your sessions will go through unchecked to the endpoint.
Thank you very much. For the next question, which models support a ransomware protection?
Well, I mean, that's a pretty vague question. I mean, even an old firewall that's got dust on it from the early, from 5 years ago can still protect against ransomware variants that are known. If you have an old firewall, you get the same signature updates the new firewalls can. But what the new firewall can do that the old firewall can't is that it can run the CaptureATP with network sandbox. Go back a couple slides here. Again, that's the network sandbox here is finding on an average day, plus or minus roughly 500 new versions of malware. That's a lot. Now, the average customer will probably find between 12 to 14 new forms of malware just by themselves with Capture ATP. If you're a big university, you're going to find a lot more. If you're a small shop with 5 people, you're probably going to find a lot less. But that being said, that's the Generation 6 firewalls, which I mentioned before. These can do network sandboxing. Now, also the client antivirus, which I'm talking about here, if I can kind of boast about that, is I'll try to find you another slide here to talk about this. But the Generation 6 firewall can also work with the antivirus solution, so that if someone does not have the antivirus on their computer or that DPI certificate on their computer, they cannot bypass the network and go on the internet to keep themselves safe. So there's a lot of things that those Generation 6 firewalls can do in terms of how they synergize with other products, so you can get a maximum value out of those security technologies. But all those, if you see in the bottom part of the screen, when I talk about Generation 6, this is what I'm talking about. It's specifically the TZ300 through 600, the NSA 26 through 6600. And then there's the new NSA, that's got the lowercase a, it's called the 2650, 3650, 4650, 5650, and of course 6650 coming up in the near future, and the supermassive 9000 series. Those will have the ability to do those advanced functions. So hopefully that long answer answered that question.
Thank you very much. With the next question. What about SSL VPN users? Can we protect network from a remote infected SSL devices?
Mm-hmm. And that network, that Capture ATP, which you see right there, this is also within the gateway. It's called GAV IPS. SMA VPN. I'm getting my acronyms mixed up. The SMA VPN device and service from SonicWall has this service as well. So if someone tries to, say, remote access or connect into the network via a vendor or some other type of person, we can stop someone trying to upload, say, a malicious ransomware file to a SharePoint folder or to a network drive.
Thank you very much. I want to know about the display screens and scanning report via network sandbox or firewall. Scanning run, done, sandbox, or firewall.
I'm not sure exactly what the question wants to see, what the person wants to see specifically. But what you'll see here is, if I can describe what you'll see here, this is in Capture ATP. And if you want to see this yourself, go to livedemo.sonicwall.com. In fact, I'm going to go there myself just to double check that URL. Yeah, live demo, which is one word, livedemo.sonicwall.com. You can play with this yourself. Take a firewall tour, and then go to, I'm going to click Next Generation Firewall, then press the orange button on the right that says View Live Demo, and then you're able to go in there and just say the monitor section, pick Capture ATP, and you can kind of play with this yourself. By the way, this demo station you're seeing here, this is based off of real malware. This is not fake test samples that we sent. We actually download scripts from the internet, from research sites to try to pull down suspicious files. Sorry, cut off there. The suspicious files, so we can see what they do, but it also gives us a chance to, one, this helps you. We're downloading them so you don't have to, okay? And two, we're able to show you what this looks like. So again, livedemo.sonicwall.com gives you that tour. You can play with that. You can filter out all the malicious stuff so you can kind of take a look at the reporting yourself. And again, the screenshot up here on the screen is only a part of the report. the report goes much deeper.
Thank you very much. What is the difference between basic licensing and advanced licensing in ATP?
Capture ATP only has one license. There's no basic and advanced. In Capture Client, the new antivirus that we're coming out with, there is a basic and advanced. That was probably one of our partners asking the question. The advanced edition has a rollback. So if I can brag about a new technology we have coming out here, we're talking about the antivirus, which is coming out, which is a Sentinel-1 core, next generation core. Go back one more slide. We're talking about this technology here called Capture Client. There's going to be an advanced version. So an advanced version has the ability to roll back the system. So in a nutshell, what this technology is it's an antivirus solution that sits in your endpoint. Now it's stopping things based on its behavior, not based on a signature. And as a result, it'll run. And as the malware ignites, starts, initiates, it's going to stop that. Then you give you a rollback option to return the endpoint to a previous time, either before you downloaded the ransomware or the advanced threat, or before it activated. So you can quarantine it before it activates and start over with a fresh image, fresh shadow copy.
Thank you very much.
Stay tuned on that. As I say, stay tuned for SonicWall's announcements and other things on Capture Client. That live demo site will have a chance for you to play with it yourself.
Thank you. We have the next question. Is that enough to ensure security for network by conferring DMZ or by Sandbox model?
It's a tough question. It requires a lot of definition to get that. But yeah, using the network sandbox is going to provide you with obviously a much higher level of security. I'll be very honest with you. A network sandbox is probably only going to examine 4% of your traffic. Okay, so but that 4% is going to represent a lot of the advanced stuff that we've never seen before. Now we're doing the best we can to avoid that. Because one, it's going to be a little bit slower. If we're able to provide a signature for a piece of malware in gateway security, which takes nanoseconds to process, versus 3 or 4 or 5 seconds for us, we can avoid the cost of processing that file, but also to make life easier and faster for you. So the network sandbox, again, there's no such thing as a magic pill in the world. There's no magical solution, but the SonicWall solution is, of course, recommended by NSS Labs, and there's a lot of weight and authority and a lot of big names behind it.
Thank you very much. Which option to be selected is best security perspective while conferring ATP? Allow file download while awaiting a verdict, or block file download until a verdict is returned?
Okay. So we have the ability. So if you go into live demo, you can see this. If you go from the through the, I can just take a quick look for people who are actually there now. The manage button gives the ability on Capture ATP, if you see that, to turn on block until verdict or turn it off. Now, by default, I recommend everybody turn that on. And by the way, I think this will be our last question for tonight. But turn that on as a default and see how it works for your network. The reason why is because there will be complaints. It also depends on your upload speed. So sometimes if you have slow upload speed of the internet, that can be a factor. But generally, we don't see that as much as an obstacle as it is the types of things you're downloading. Now, the type of people that I don't recommend turning on block until verdict is the people who download a lot of PDFs. For example, a chemical company who has to download what is called the Material Safety Data Sheets, MSDS. They have to download a lot of those on a consistent basis, and every time they do that, they take a little bit of time because of the embedded code that is in that NSDS. Now, we're trying to do things in the future with CaptureATP to create more segmentation in the network so that you could turn that on or turn that off based on different parts of your network, different user groups, or even turn that on or off for different file types. So some people feel that they should turn that off for PDFs but keep that on for executables. So look forward to that to future releases and how that will be rolled out. But generally, I recommend turning that on. So with that being said, we're here at the end of our time today. Again, if you could please follow me on Twitter at brchum, we can keep this conversation going, and it's a great way to get a hold of me. Otherwise, if you have questions, reach out to your partner or contact us, sales@sonicwall.com. But again, your best bet is to talk with your account manager that you deal with on a consistent basis. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you. So there are many other questions, but at this point of time, considering the time, I would like to turn the program back to you for any final closing comments.
No, thank you. Please fire over the questions. I do believe these are tied to your email address. We'll try to get back to you as soon as we can. Otherwise, reach out to me on Twitter, like I mentioned. But again, stay safe, stay secure. And again, if the firewall in your closet or your data center is older than the cell phone in your pocket, you may need to consider making a change to more modern security.
Thank you very much, Brooke. I would like to thank all the participants who joined us today. Hope you all have spent a useful time. With this, we conclude the session. Wish you all a great day ahead. Thank you, everyone, for joining in.